Welcome to this week's edition of the Deck Top Podcast. We have another great episode lined up for you for tonight, but first we have to talk about the sponsor for tonight's episode, Spear Point Performance Hooks. Hooks proven and tested to put more fish in your boat using their V-Grip technology. Spear Point hooks will perfectly present lures and provide the most secure connection between hook and fish, giving you the ability to help prevent fish from shaking off. Spearpoint hooks are designed to perform and trusted by anglers across the world. See what the buzz is about. Get your Spearpoint Performance hooks today. Go to www.spearpointhooks.com and don't forget, make sure to use our discount code DECKTALK10. Again, that is spearpointhooks.com. Use our discount code DECKTALK10. We have an awesome episode lined up for everybody for tonight. Joining the show is going to be, he is a good friend of mine. I've known this guy since 2016 when I had the privilege of sharing the boat with him on his home body of water of Santee Cooper, where he obliterated the rest of the co-angler field. But anyway, without further ado, let's get right into this week's episode with our guest, Mr. Todd Walters.
So welcome back to Deck Talk Podcast. We have a guest on tonight that is a hammer in himself, and don't let his son put shade up over him because he is also a hammer. And Norman, let's find out who this cat is that we got on here tonight. So let us know who this is.
That's right, Colin. You know what? This is one episode that I am super excited about. I met this fella back in 2016. Had the pure pleasure of being able to fish with this man on his home body of water, just watching him hammer it down. But guys, this is Todd Walters. Now, if that name sounds a little bit familiar, he is the father of one of the best fishermen on tour right now, Patrick. So, man, Todd, we are super excited about having you on.
Man, thank you.
And I know I'm just stoked about this episode. I've been wanting to have you on for such a long time, and we finally were able to kind of collaborate things and get you on here. But what is going on, Todd, and how you doing, man?
Well, I'm doing great, guys. I really appreciate y'all having me on. I've been kind of flying under the radar for the last 5 or 6 years. Once Patrick qualified for the elites, and like I said, we've just been kind of being parents and just kind of fans and grandparents, and we retired about 3 years ago, and so we've just been kind of living life, and I'm not going to say taking it easy, but just kind of doing some different things. And but like I say, I can't steal any of Patrick's thunder because, like I say, he surpassed me, and I mean, I'm kind of all too when I'm watching him, and he keeps taking it to another level.
And we had him on, and we've actually had him on twice. And each time, Todd, that he's come on, at the end of the episode, I've told Patrick, I said, within the next two tournaments, you're going to win. And both times that he's come on, it's happened twice. And right. So
we did he said,
that's what we tried, and we even said, hey, we need to have you and your dad come on an episode, just so both of y'all are on and just kind of hear, because he talks about like how y'all's mind is thinking is kind of the same and stuff, and y'all kind of butt heads. And I was like, man, that'd just be great video just to have y'all kind of going amongst each other.
I was getting ready to say that when you was talking about butting heads, because it doesn't matter what we're doing. If we're cutting wood, if we're hunting, if we're fishing, if we're riding in the truck, we are not going to agree, and we're going in two different directions. But we usually end up at the same place.
Yeah,
and that's kind of what I like about it is he doesn't agree with me on everything, and he's got an opinion of his own, and I don't agree with him, so it makes him think a little bit. It makes me think. Keeps me on my toes.
Well, I know one thing that he does agree with you on is making sure that he has that Cinco tied on. he said that that's one thing that we definitely do agree on, that is tied on the boat.
It was, but like I said, now it's the Zoom trick stick. So,
Yeah.
like I say, he still throws that old worm out there.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
he knows if I'm fishing, I'm in the back of the boat. I can keep up with him usually just dragging a worm in the back.
Yeah.
And
Has Patrick kind of gave you any lessons on all that forward facing sonar stuff?
he had
Because I know I'll be the first to say I myself was born about 30 years too early to really comprehend a lot of that stuff, and I know a lot of these younger guys on tour today,
yeah.
man, they are just so impressive using it. But has he had a chance to really show you some stuff about it yet?
Norman, I'm kind of in the same boat as you. It's hard for me to understand, and I do understand it, but that's not my style of fishing.
Yeah,
And he and I will fish, and we never fish on the bow of the boat together. I Even if we're fun fishing or if we're tournament fishing, I fish in the back of the boat.
right.
I fish how I want to. Now, there's a lot of times he'll say, "Hey, throw over here, throw over there in this direction," and I might do it one or two times, but
Yeah,
I have walked up to the bow of the boat and he shows me everything and I'm looking at it and um, I just I don't understand it like he does.
yeah,
I don't know if my eyes are not good enough anymore, but I just the guys that are doing this is amazing. And for people that watch bass fishing on TV, for them to say that they don't like forward facing sonar, I find that hard to believe because
yeah,
I would rather watch a guy doing that. He's talking to you, he's telling what the fish are doing, how they're reacting, um,
Right.
and you don't get that with anything else. I mean,
yeah,
if you're blind casting, I mean it's I mean, you don't know what's out there.
yeah.
Right.
I mean, you might cast 100 times and you don't know if the fish are there or not.
Right,
Yeah.
But I do like the forward-facing sonar, but I'm not a fan of using it.
right, right.
Right. And we've told people before, even Patrick, we had him talk about it a little bit, and I got it on my boat, but I really don't utilize it for really what it's worth because mainly I'll scan it up underneath the dock or I'll scan it on some brush pile and then I just kind of just do my thing without even looking at it, like how you'll see the guys on the elites or any other tournament series to where they're just looking straight down at the screen.
Yeah,
But it is a learning tool that people really don't realize. Just because you have it on your boat, you're not going to be the next Patrick Walters or you're not going to be the next Jacob
no,
Wheeler because it's on your boat.
yes,
These guys have gotten to where they're at because they spent thousands of hours looking at this screen and figuring this stuff out. But when you can look at it and realize that, hey, these fish are acting a little bit different than what we initially thought before this even came out. These fish are doing things that are different. And
yep,
and I've told Norman, I've realized, I love beating the bank. I could beat the bank with the best of them, but I've realized the fish will kind of make a circle. I
yep,
mean, how big the circle is, I don't really know, but they will make a circle, and then once they you got to find where that place is that they're going to eat at, and they'll eat at that place every time
it's
they
like bed
come back to
fishing.
that circle. Yeah,
It's like
and
it's like a
so
fish on a bed. They're gonna leave and
Oh
they're
yeah,
gonna circle that bed, and they're not
yeah,
gonna eat until that bait is
yeah.
where they want it.
Exactly,
exactly.
and the people, the fans of fishing that's watching live, on TV during the tournaments, and you hear so many comments about forward facing sonar from the general public. Everybody wants to give their opinion, and everybody has an opinion on it. But what a lot of these people that you hear talking about it so bad, they don't. What they don't realize is you take it off every boat on tour, all the younger generation that really knows how to use it and utilizes it to the best of its ability, you take it off their boats and they're just as good. They wouldn't
Yes.
be, they would not be on tour if they weren't fishermen, and great fishermen with it or without it. And people don't realize that. People always say, well, if it's on their boat and all the younger generation is doing so well, you take that off their boats and they're going to be winning just as much tournaments on
They
tour.
are.
It's not the unit. They've just put their time in, really. And I've said this before, man. Live sonar, forward facing sonar, is one of the most innovative learning tools that I think they've ever came out with in the fishing industry, because you can learn so much about how the fish habitat, how they react to baits, stuff we've never known without being able to see it in lifetime.
Yeah.
So,
Well, and this technology is not new. It gets
No.
better and better every year, but
yeah,
it came out in 2015, 2016. And I think when the Classic was on Hartwell, and Patrick and I were up there, we were spectators. Um, I think he might have been a sophomore or freshman in college. And they introduced it at the Classic, and I think Randall Tharp and a lot of the other guys, they had it on the boat. And we we thought it was going to be a game changer then, and
Correct.
it went quiet basically for about probably 5 years, 6 years maybe.
Yeah.
It just came to light really probably in the last 3 years, when a lot of these younger guys had put the time in and they figured it out. And but it had been around. A lot of the guys just overlooked it, and they weren't going to use it,
yeah.
and
Yeah.
they weren't going to learn it.
Just
Yeah.
look at side imaging. Back when side imaging first came
Yeah,
out, everybody thought
Well,
that
everybody thought the same thing.
everybody
yeah,
was
they
saying the same
did.
thing then. But look how, from then to now, look how technology's just evolved. I mean, when side imaging came out, I mean, everybody was thinking, man, that is unreal to be able to see 50 feet
Correct.
out the sides of your boat. And now
Yeah,
Yeah.
look where
Well,
we
now
are
it
today.
comes basic on every unit that
Yeah.
you have. I
absolutely.
Yeah,
mean,
Yeah.
yeah. Now side image is
right.
basic on everything.
I mean, that's my take on technology, and technology is with everything. If you're not
Yeah,
Yeah.
willing to adapt and willing to change and willing to grow, then you're basically going to get left behind. I mean,
Yeah.
yeah.
this is where we're moving, and everything's going to forward.
Yeah, and
Um,
Yeah.
I remember when power poles first came out 27 years ago. I've
yep.
been lucky enough to be affiliated with Power Pole now for going on 20 years. But when Power Pole first came out, the local club tournament, stuff like that, people that had them, great. There's a lot of talk about power poles.
Yeah.
The guys that didn't have them on the boats, talking about the guys that did, and unfair advantage. But this stuff was going
Yeah.
on, not only talking about electronics, but dating back to
Oh
power
yeah.
pole, when
Yeah.
power
Yeah.
poles first came out.
But as far as going back to the forward facing sonar, and we won't beat that up, is
Yeah.
a lot of my friends, so they used to call me and they say, hey, what do I need to get, and which brand, and can y'all get me set up? I said, let me tell you something. Before you go spend this money, you need to go get in the boat with somebody that has it, and you need to
Exactly.
look at it, and you need to see how it works before you go spend all that money. I said, because basically, in my opinion, only about 25% of the fishermen are capable of using it.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
those are
And
guys, those are great fishermen. The,
yeah.
the, the average Joe doesn't know how to use the technology. But they
And
think that if you have it on your boat, that you can go
it's
catch fish. And that
exactly.
is
Exactly.
not the case.
No.
No.
So,
Yeah.
and I do want to know, because, and we won't stay on it, the forward facing sonar, but, I mean, because the crappie industry picked it up, I mean, immediately. It's been in the crappie probably since it came out in 2015, 2016. Crappie took it over, but also like the saltwater
Yeah.
used it really before uh, even like bass anglers have even tried to even like take advantage of it.
Correct.
And I know that that you and Patrick, y'all started out doing
In saltwater.
saltwater fishing.
Yeah.
So did y'all see that going that way when y'all were doing that?
When we were saltwater fishing, that technology was not out yet.
Right.
Like I said, that was around 2015, 2016. And like I said, that was kind of about 2 or 3 year transition period where Patrick and I went to freshwater and out of the saltwater.
Right. I
Now
got you.
we have used it in the saltwater, and I mean, there's a lot of guys that use it for shrimping. And this time of year, when the water
Oh,
gets cold, they
interesting.
go out there and they shrimp the deep holes. You can
Right.
see the shrimp down there
Yeah.
and scan them, and you throw a cast net in 25 foot of water.
Yeah.
I mean, but
Well, and I noticed this, and maybe you have noticed too. This past year when we had, because we're in Chattanooga, we fish Chickamauga, Nickajack, and Guntersville and stuff. But on Chick, I noticed, and I was able to see that when the mayflies hatched, like you can look on Forward Facing Sonar, and you know how like when you're looking at the Forward Facing Sonar, you can see the bottom and stuff, and you'll see the fish or whatever. But like if you could see like a haze on the bottom, like a day or two before the
before they
mayflies
hatch,
hatch,
yep.
and to where they're coming up out of the water and stuff like that. Have you seen that?
I have not seen that, but a lot of people don't know that they hatch at the bottom and come to the top. So
Right,
you
right,
probably you just educated a lot of people on that.
right. So
A
yeah,
lot of people think
and
they come. A lot of people think they come out of the air and end up landing
right,
on the water, and then they die.
right.
But
No, that's not the case. In which
no,
I didn't. I mean, to be honest with you on that, I didn't know that they came from the water until maybe 4 or 5 years ago. And I had a buddy of mine tell me he and he didn't even have any kind of forward facing sonar or anything like that. And we went out fishing, and I mean we could not catch a fish for nothing that day. And and about halfway through the day, he's like, "I guarantee you, the next couple of days the mayflies are going to hatch." And I'm like, "Okay, but how do you?" And he said it again. I was like, "How do you? What are you thinking to make you think this?" And I was like, and he said, usually, because during the summertime, he says, usually you can kind of stay on a consistent bite during the summertime. And he says, when that consistent bite goes away, usually it goes away for a day or two. And he says, those mayflies are coming up out of the bottom. And then he says, and then the next thing you know, mayflies are everywhere. And I was like, so they're coming out of the water. I didn't believe him at first. And he's like, man, I'm telling you.
those fish are gorging on them while they're below the surface.
Yeah.
And I think that's probably a lot of times why those fish aren't biting at
that's
that
what he was
point.
saying.
Because they're just feeding below the surface.
Yeah.
So,
but I seen that this past summer, and I was like, and I meant to ask some of the anglers and stuff, but because we kind of just do like a Cliff Note version, because everybody wants to hear everybody's opinion on the forward facing sonar. And when we do it live, and once we get started on forward facing sonar, I'll have 20 million comments on forward facing sonar. So we kind of just Cliff Note version or push it to the side. Yeah. But I've always wanted to, ever since I seen that, I've wanted to ask to see if somebody else, and I know that that if Patrick and stuff, I mean, and Patrick probably has seen it, and
there's a lot of things those guys are not going to tell you.
Yeah.
Because it's just something, an extra tool in their bag that they kind of hold on to with mapping and with different things, setups on the graphs, and then when the cat gets let out of the bag, then they say, "Yeah, I've been doing that for 5 years." And,
tell me something.
But yeah.
So, but I do want to talk about the classic. I mean, Patrick has done fairly well in fishing the classic. I mean, And in my opinion, and we may can go on record with this, and Norman, we're going to see how this going to go here back in when March comes. But watch this, Norman. We're going to see Patrick holding that Ray Scott trophy for two reasons. He's going to catch it. There's going to be a century belt broke when he does the Classic this year. So it's going to be the first century belt broke in the Classic. Then, two, he's not going to allow Hamner hold that Classic trophy and tell him what to do for too much longer. I mean, that's just how I feel about it. And, I mean, we had Hamner on here, and Hamner said he may have a lot of blue trophies, but he doesn't have this one trophy. And Patrick's going to do all he can do. Yeah. And I believe that this Classic is going to it's going to fit into his wheelhouse a whole lot better than, especially the past two, just in my opinion. And Todd, I mean, you may be able to kind of say yay or nay. It may not. I mean, but Patrick's done good in Texas, though.
Yeah, he has done good in Texas. I know he pre-fished out there a little bit after the Texas tournaments this year, and they made the announcement of the Classic. He went and spent a few days out there. We have fished the Classic on that lake. You know, we the approach we take in the Classic is pretty aggressive, but it's pretty laid back. I mean, we go all in. I caddy, I drive him in the mornings, I pick him up in the afternoons. We make that 2-hour trip in the morning, 2 hours in the afternoon back, because there's always a long ride to the lake and to the weigh-in. And but we're always very calm and very laid back. It's just like with Hamner this year, and we stayed together at practice, and we did everything, and it was a very calm. I mean, both of them were very calm, and so we don't get real excited about the Classic. We kind of take it in stride, but it is the Bassmaster Classic, and we want that trophy. And eventually it'll happen. You just don't never know when or how, and when it happens, it happens.
And and Hamner kind of showed that when it's your time, I mean, it's your time.
Absolutely.
But I mean, just thinking about how he's done in Texas, and I mean, he's gotten 2 century belts in Texas.
Yep.
And I believe that, I mean, he's going to come out there swinging, and it's going to be phenomenal. We're going to be out there. We're going to be stoked about it, and I mean, we're ready. We're ready for him to do it. And so I don't know if you want to tell him that I have already penciled him in as the next Classic champion. But I mean, so far I'm 2 for 2. So
I hear
I mean,
you.
I'd like to be 3 for 3.
I'm gonna probably keep that under my hat. I don't want to get it too fired up.
But when it happens, though, I mean, we do expect you to say, "Hey, when I went on Deck Talk, they did call that." So, but no, I think that it's real cool, and of the fact that you're traveling with them, and because I know that if I was traveling on the elites and stuff, I would want my dad there. And every time I go out, my dad's always right here fishing. Even if it's just him throwing a Texas rig and throwing it in trees, it's still.
And I think that's the calming part of it is we've been hunting and fishing together since he was probably 3. And I mean, I'd have a camper, and it would just be me and him. We'd go to Arkansas duck hunting or We would go to Lake Okeechobee. We'd go to Gunnersville. Even when he got into high school, when he had spring break, I can't say we knew he was going to eventually fish, but we prepared for it because the spring breaks in like ninth grade, 10th grade, we would go to all these different lakes for that week, and
Yeah.
and we would practice those lakes and fish those lakes for fun, and we would
Yeah.
learn them. And it's really a, I don't know if they could throw a lake on us that we hadn't been to.
Yeah.
Right.
And like I
And
say,
that's
when we travel together, and like we say, with him fishing the elites and all, is he's my partner and I'm his partner, and
right.
that's the way it's always been. So when he gets in the truck at the end of the day, or even in the morning, we're drinking coffee, going to the boat landing, we're talking game plan. And
Yeah.
we're talking strategy. He's kind of telling me what he's thinking. I'm kind of listening. I don't put any input in to try and change his mind on anything.
Yeah.
I kind of listen at what his game plan is going to be, and but if I'm that ear and I'm that rock that is right there
Yeah.
beside him, that he's saying, okay, this is how we're going to attack it, and this is what's going to happen.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and I mean,
And
and it means so much. I know to him. I mean, because especially the last time we had him on, we were talking about it, and but to have somebody there that he trusts enough to be able to say, all right, even talking game plan, even if you do not respond, but he's talking and able to verbalize kind of his
yes,
game plan, and then, well, that didn't quite sound so right, and so let's change. It could change his mind if something
yeah,
don't sound right,
correct,
even though you're
correct.
just there, just listening.
I will put some input in sometimes, but I don't try to persuade him anyway.
Right, right,
Because he's already pretty. Even when he blasts off in the mornings, a lot of times is I'll say, "Where you gonna start?" He say, "I'm not quite sure yet. I'll figure it out when I'm going."
once I
I've
get
got a
going, right.
couple. Yeah, I've got a couple places in mind, but I'm not sure yet.
Yeah,
And it's just when it
and
hits
it's
him, and it hits him. So
yeah. I know when we had Hamner on, um, what was it, Norman? Was he talking about the classic that he told Patrick, hey, this we got to hit this first, and he says we never start at the same place. He said they started at the same
Yeah,
place,
that was a
and
classic.
they
yeah,
went like he said we were there for like 2.5 hours, and then we got nothing. He says Patrick won't ever listen to me again about where to start.
Well, actually,
yeah,
even Patrick said that he caught himself after, he kind of, every angler, second guesses. It's so easy to second guess stuff that happens throughout the day after the fact. But Patrick was even saying that if there's one thing he could do over again on that past classic is he would have slowed down because he was fishing
yeah,
too fast. And Hamner
Yeah,
actually touched on that, where Hamner had to really slow down and really fish and pick it apart. And he even said there was boats coming in his area, but they would come
hmm
in, they make 3 or 4, 5, 6, 100 casts, and they scoot out. And they were going fast. They were hammered down on the trolling motor. And he said you just had to
yeah,
settle down and just really fish methodical and slow. And I think
yeah,
even Patrick said that was his
yeah.
mistake. He was just going too fast.
Yeah, and at the classic that we were, I think it was Ray Roberts, when Hank won it 2 or 3 years ago when we were out there, and Patrick was on those fish also. He was fishing the same area with Hank, and he ended up moving on down and didn't fish the area.
Yeah.
He's
right,
because he doesn't like fishing around any other boats.
Right. Right.
yeah,
If somebody comes in on him, or he's probably gonna leave, but he's never gonna pull in on somebody else because
Yeah.
he's not gonna fish around anybody else.
Yeah.
yeah.
But
Now,
But I want to
during the
cut you off, Colin. Hey, I'm
you're
going
good.
to go one more thing on Hamner about as far as not listening to him or listening to him.
Right.
When we were fishing the Sabine River, and this was probably 2 years ago, and he, for days, kept talking about he was on the winning fish.
Oh,
A huge school of
I
fish.
heard this.
I
Yeah.
mean, it was like he could not quit talking about it, and he didn't fish it but he had found them. And he
Yeah.
went there and he started there the first morning, and it was a school of redfish.
Yeah. Hey, Norman, he said, I heard him on Mercer about this. He said that I was telling everybody, I was calling people up saying, I'm winning this tournament. I am winning this tournament. And then he got to it and he said, I fished there a little bit too long, but it was nothing but redfish. It was fun,
Nothing
but
but
he said, I
redfish.
fished there too long.
That's hilarious.
Yeah,
It
that
was.
and that I would have done the same thing. If I would have seen that school, I would have been like, heck yeah, I'm on them. I'm going to tear this thing.
Yeah.
I may not have called everybody in my phone book
Yeah.
just to be able to say I'm fixing to win this tournament, but everybody that I was camping with or rooming with, they would have known.
Oh yeah, in that tournament, it was me and Patrick and Clint Davis and Shane LaHue and Brandon Cobb and Justin. That was who
Yeah.
was rooming together. So yeah, but he was confident that he was going to wreck them.
Yeah.
Did
When I heard that, I was like, I had to, because I was unloading. I worked for McKee Foods, which is Little Debbie. So we'll go and we'll unload in the storage units. And then the vendors that actually go to the stores will come pick it up and stuff. I was unloading or like getting boxes and throwing them down our rollers. When I heard that, I had to stop because I was laughing so hard. And my partner, he hollered. He said, "What are you laughing about?" And I told him, I said, "I'm listening to a podcast," and I told him, and he just started laughing. But yeah,
has any of those guys that was rooming with you at the time ever let Patrick live it down?
no, that wasn't Patrick. That was Hamner.
No, that was Hamner.
Hamner.
And no, when he came in that night, yes, we had some fun with him at dinner that night.
Yeah,
because when he had to fess up to it.
Yeah, because I think he said that he came in with like 12, 13 pounds for the day when he was saying that he's going to have 25. And he came in with like 12 or 13.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
But yeah, Hamner had a great year. I mean, not just the classic. I mean, he had. I mean, he was gonna. He had AOI right there to the end.
And we thought he was going to get it.
Yeah, it was like I say, he had an awesome year.
Yeah, he just had a real stellar year, and we were talking when we were talking to Hamner, you know, kind of once he won that classic to have that under his belt. And then all of a sudden he could just fit. I mean, no more. I don't want to say no more worries, but after that classic, now he could just go fish with not the stress and not the pressure. And that just goes to show you how that pays off when you could go fish without a lot of worries. And he just really was able to lock in after that. So,
Well, and he said that the confidence that he's had, that he got this past year, or actually towards the end of last year to fishing this past year and stuff, the confidence he just grew, and I didn't know, I mean, because he had the first two tournaments, he was sitting pretty good in the first two tournaments after, and then the classic, and then, I mean, he just kept on rolling with it, and Norman and I talked about it, that there was something changed in him.
Yes, it started to click.
Yeah. And so, and that's one thing, like, he spoke a lot about, like with rooming with y'all and being able to bounce stuff off of y'all. Not saying that y'all are the magic tools or whatever, but again, just kind of like how you and Patrick in the truck talking, just being able to bounce stuff off of people. I mean, it really helps the mind game a lot. And
it does. In the afternoons when the two of them get back from practice and they can sit down and they can rig, and then they can have dinner and they can talk to each other on what each one of them experienced that day and what they didn't experience, and it does. It really helps both of them a lot. I mean, and I think that's why you see a lot more people rooming together. I'm not going to call it as teams, but they work together.
Yeah. I
And
mean, because
I mean,
what,
you
10, 15 years ago, you wouldn't even, you would never hear an angler say, well, yeah, I'm rooming, but they would never say, yeah, we're working together trying to
yeah,
figure this out. To where
yeah,
now, I mean, it is like you got these little pods of people staying together, and you know that they're sharing the information, unless they're Corey and
and
Johnson
Chris,
and Chris. Yeah,
sure.
they they're
And
probably
that's
the most locked lips people that I know,
yeah,
and then they'll beat you down and take your money and just laugh about it. So
yeah. I mean, and they're they're great fishermen, but they
yeah,
work together, and they're not selfish with each other. They they
right,
they work hand in hand with each other, and that's
Yeah.
what it's
yeah,
about if you're going to do it together.
Yeah.
yeah.
Um,
So, but I do have to ask, because I don't want us to have this whole podcast about Patrick and Hamner, even though we do love both of them, and we do want to talk about your fishing. And but I do have to ask you, how in the world does Patrick go from South Carolina to up north and catch them big old smallmouths?
yeah, it took a lot of time in the opens. Um, we got our brains beat in up there, and we just got tired of it. And
Right,
so we would go up there probably 3 or 4 weeks before the tournaments and fish different bodies of water. And I think 3 years ago we stayed up there for, it must have been about 5 or 6 weeks, and we just
right,
went to a bunch of different bodies of water. And I mean, it's time on the water and understanding them. Um, and it's hard to go from throwing a jig with 20 pound test line to throwing a hair jig with 4 pound or 6 pound
four
test
pound.
line. I mean,
Oh,
that's a completely different mindset,
yeah,
and that's what you got to switch over from, because there were times that, like I said, when we used to go fish north, is we were still trying to fish for greenfish. I
Yeah.
mean,
right,
we wasn't fishing for smallmouth, and
mm-hmm.
Right.
but after you get beat time and time again by the smallmouth, you got to adapt to it and
Right.
you got to figure it out, because if not, every time you go up there, you're going to lose.
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
mean,
and I think the when he won 2 years ago, the very last tournament that was up there, and got the century belt. And
yep,
when nobody really thought the century belt was going to come off a smallmouth factory lake, and he goes up there and handles his business and brings home a trophy and a century belt. Um, and it's phenomenal to think, like, I mean, he's a Southern boy going
yeah,
up there and hammering down. And because everybody thinks, all right, we're going to go catch some smallmouth, going to St. Clair's or wherever. So you got to always put the Johnson boys in when you're going
you do.
smallmouth fishing.
Oh,
And then you
absolutely.
got to put in Fighter in there as
Yep,
well. Um, and then, I mean, Gussie with proving it
yep,
on that he's a smallmouth machine as well.
yep.
So everybody, well,
And
we're fishing for
look at
four.
all, yeah, look at all these young guys that are from up north
Yeah,
that are coming in now. I mean, they're hammers up north.
they are.
But it's gotten to the point, just like with electronics, is just like with smallmouth and largemouth. Is you look at the Johnsons and those guys, they come down here now, the northern guys, and they can catch largemouth
Yeah.
with the best of them.
Yeah. And
Yeah,
And now you take the guys from the south and from the largemouth guys, and they go up north, and they can catch the smallmouth. I mean,
yeah.
that's the
yeah,
type of caliber of
Yeah.
fisherman is in the elite series.
Yeah. And that's what I was just gonna say. That just goes to show like you said, I was actually going to say it before you said that, but that just goes to show the caliber of anglers that's throughout the
Yep.
Elite Series. You take somebody that's from the north, with a few days on the water, could come down to Lake Okeechobee and be
Yep.
right there hanging out in the top 10, fighting for a win. And guys like Patrick are guys that actually are born and raised fishing in the south. It doesn't take much to put them on a northern lake and for them to figured out really, really quick. And
Yeah.
you take an average angler to put them in the same situation, there's no way at all. So that kind of goes to show how good the whole
Yeah.
field is from top to bottom. To be able to do that,
Yeah.
nobody else would be able to do that if they're not fishing at that level.
No,
Right.
at that level, you can't stumble or make any mistakes and
No,
end up winning a tournament.
no,
Right.
That's the one thing that I try to tell Patrick every morning that he goes in tournament fishing is you got to fish clean and don't make any mistakes.
yep.
If
And
if
Yeah.
you if you fish clean, you just can't afford to lose any key
yeah,
fish.
yeah,
Right.
Because you don't know how many bites you're going to get,
yeah.
and you
Yeah.
don't know how many big bites you're going to get. So you got to catch everything that bites.
And the other thing too is,
Some days it's 5 fit for 5 bites. That's all
yeah.
That's it.
you're getting.
You can't afford to lose one.
Yeah, and when you fish at that level, you can't have a bad day because
No.
no matter how tough the fishing is, you can have a bad day because there's
Yeah.
going to be half the field. If you get the worst fishing day of the year on that specific body of water, there's going to be half the field that's going to catch them regardless.
They're
So
going to
Yeah.
catch
at
them.
that level, they're going to catch them. So you can never have a
Yeah.
bad day when you're fishing at that level, and it can be humbling when you're out there and have a bad day and look at all these other weights coming in, and you're like, wow, where was
Yeah.
I fishing? But yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Well, you listen to a lot of these guys, and they'll bad mouth and they'll talk bad about how the fishing and how practice was, and then they come in tournament day and they catch them.
Yeah.
But listen to these guys. They go out and they post pictures and they have a great practice and they're catching them. And then comes tournament day, and then they don't do
yeah,
anything.
yeah. And how many times do you
Right.
see? And it's legit too. Because when I used to fish tournaments all the time, I seemed like I'd have a better tournament when I had bad practice days and just go up,
Yes.
fly off the seat of my pants during the tournament. And when you really have good practice, you might not have so much of a good tournament because things change so rapidly and so quick. So
Yeah.
and that's a lot of what we hear from a lot of the anglers is they'll say, man, they want like Justin in the classic.
Mm-hmm.
He had a terrible practice,
Yep.
but when it came time for the tournament, he just basically flew off the seat of his pants and just kept his head down and
Yep.
ended up winning the thing.
And
Or you'll have a practice.
yep.
You'll have
And
a
I called it.
practice and tell everybody you're going to win first place and go catch some redfish.
That's it. You're right. But I mean, I call it junk fishing. If Patrick goes and we got a tournament and um, he's not really catching them and he don't have a pattern and but he's going out and he's catching he's catching some fish, but he just don't have any pattern or anything to hang his hat on. I said,
Right.
well, just go junk fishing. Just go
Yeah,
practice fish. I
yeah,
mean, you
Right.
catching them that way. Don't try and force something or try and make something happen that's
That's
not going
not
to
there.
happen.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's. I mean, you just can't do that.
And what separates a lot of the guys on tour really is all up here,
Yes.
because these guys are so rock solid mentally that
Yeah.
they just they have a gift to be able to block everything out and not
Yeah.
catch anything from that outside world. And that's why, you take great anglers, that's good fishermen, just tears it up when they go fishing, when they go fun fishing or in your local tournaments. But you put them in that environment to fish
Yeah.
against the elites, and they wouldn't be able to do it because they're not strong up in the head. And
Correct.
that's a
Yeah.
lot of it. If you're not strong up here, you're just not going to be able to make it. All those guys on the elites, they have that gift to be able to block everything else out and not even think. They have no memory of
Yeah.
having a bad day the day before. How many people you see on tour have a terrible day one and come back and have a great day two and end up making the day three cut and making the top 10 after a sucky day one?
Correct.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That would spin most people
Just
out.
yeah, I was
it
gonna say as
would.
long as you don't spin out. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
that's the key.
I got a question that I just kind of been thinking about here probably the past couple of days. And since we were kind of on the forward facing sonar for a little bit, I wanted to ask Darren it, but we kind of rabbit hole somewhere else. But I do want to kind of bring this question up and kind of just see what you think about it, Todd. If they take forward facing sonar, which I know, I mean, Bass is not going to do it. One, they just signed a multi sponsorship deal with Garmin, so they're not going to pull the forward facing sonar. But if they took, let's just say they took forward facing sonar out, professional fishing, you cannot use forward facing sonar, and because these other anglers are griping and complaining because they're getting beat by these kids that are using it and beating them, and they take it away, and then those other people get back up to the top. Do you think that they can say that they're the best in the world?
No, and they're not going to
I
get
mean,
back to the
because I was
top.
trying to figure out how to say that, but you know where I'm trying to say. I mean,
I
because
do.
that technology's there. They wasn't the best when that technology was being used.
That technology's been around for 10 years.
Yeah.
And there's a new wave of fishermen in, and when it's your time, it's your time.
Yeah.
But Patrick Fisher's the NPFL also, and they're going to do away with forward facing sonar next year.
Right.
That make a difference to us. We fished without it before. We'll fish without it again. Um, all we need to know, and I say we, is all Patrick needs to know is what are the rules going to be before we've played a game. And
Yeah.
when the
Yeah.
game starts, then we'll play by the rules and we'll compete.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter what they allow, what they don't allow. Um, we'll be ready to go with whatever happens.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
So
we it doesn't make any difference to us.
right, and that's because I was thinking, I was like, if they done away with it, then anybody after they took away the forward facing sonar really cannot say they're the best in the world because that technology they're taking away technology that people was
Yeah,
using to beat them prior to. So that's
yeah.
kind of where I was going at it. But
But even guys that were at the top of their game in say 2018, 2019, um, there'll be times when they're going to win a tournament and they're going to have good seasons, but it's not going to be a flip flop to where the younger guys are going to go to the bottom of the field and the other guys are going to come back to the top
right,
of the
right, right.
field. That's
Yeah.
never going to happen.
No.
No.
It'll always stay mixed up with who's competing and how hard they're working, and it's dedication, it's dependability. It's like I was telling a guy today, he's starting his own business. I said, listen, if you're willing to work as hard as you can and you're dependable and you're honest and trustworthy, you'll be successful. That's
Yeah.
all you need. If you go out
That's
there
it.
and work as hard as you can be the best at anything you want to do. It's
Yeah.
work
Yeah.
ethic.
Oh yeah.
And
Uh,
that's what a lot of
so,
people, especially the younger generations, they don't have that work ethic at all because they've been
no.
given everything on a silver platter. And so they don't know what it is to go in the fishing world to even go out there to even go find fish. And that's the reason why, like, I mean, Norman, and I know that y'all have seen it and stuff being out on rat boats and stuff to where you'll have people come up and come by you and then they slow way down and all you're
Oh,
seeing is
yeah.
just yeah, and trying to just because they're not willing to put the work in to see to
Correct.
find stuff for themselves. All they see is a rat boat
Yep.
and they're like, oh, that's a
Yeah.
pro.
Yeah.
And the first time that I went out with Norman, and Norman tells this story quite a bit, is we went out and we was fishing on Chick, in which I had fished Chick. I mean, I've been fishing Chick for the past 25 years or so. and but we went to a flat. Norman, I was wanting to learn more about like how to ledge fish because I grew up, I mean, just beating banks, and
Correct.
that's all I really wanted to do. And so I was like, all right, I want to learn how to do some offshore fishing, ledge fishing. And so Norman took me and we was pedaling around. We went to some ledge, and Norman's like, he said, what do you think about this? I said, all right, we can fish it. And then we had somebody, I mean, just come up and just bowed up, and you can see them putting in waypoints. And he said, you know what's funny is this guy's getting this waypoint, and we hadn't caught a fish over here. And he said, if he knew that I didn't really know this lake at this time, he's like, all they're doing is just looking at my boat and thinking that I'm on some fish.
Yeah, that was my first month in Tennessee after we moved from Florida, and of course I'm guiding full time up here now. But as before, I fished these lakes about a year before I started really feeling comfortable to take people out. But I just met Colin, and I was still learning the lakes up here, not being from this area. And we're out there on the ledge, and you could almost see the brake lights come on his boat as he went by, and you could see him fooling around with his electronics. I told Colin, I says, it's funny as hell, Colin, but if that guy only knows, I don't know the first thing what I'm doing out here right now.
Really. but going back to, you talked about the forward facing sonar and them taking it away, and it's just like with ledge fishing. When we used to go out there and scan the bottom with just regular 2D sonar, and find the fish and throw a buoy out the side of the boat, and then go up there and then turn around and get lined up and set up, and then start working on them with a Carolina rig. I mean, those days are still around, and you can still do that. You don't have to fish with forward facing sonar. The old technique is still there. I mean, but it goes back to that mindset that you've got to have confidence in yourself and your ability. And I'm thinking a lot of these guys are just getting spun out because they think they're beat before they ever even get on the water. And if you got that mindset, you are beat before you get on the water.
Oh yeah, you might as well not even put the boat in the water.
Yeah, I mean,
So I do want to talk about a lake that may or may not be near or dear to your heart, but I want to talk about Santee Cooper.
Okay.
Because I know that you may have fished it once or twice or something like that. I mean,
just a couple times.
So, what is it about Santee Cooper that the Walters just love Santee Cooper?
I reckon it's just the confidence, but a lot of people are scared of Santee Cooper because of the stumps and the low water, and we don't have a fear of Santee. We run Santee like it's our backyard. We feel that comfortable with it. There's nowhere out there I don't mind running or going, and Patrick is way, I'm not going to say worse than I am, but as far as carefree is, if we want to go from point A to point B, we don't go to C and D to get over there. We go from A to B, and we just, over the years, what we've always tried to do is when we fished a different body of water, whether we were at Gunnersville or if we were at Chick or we were at Okeechobee, we always tried to bring something back from that body of water to make it work on Santee. Because the fish are going to do the same thing, and everybody gets stuck in a pattern or in a trend of fishing your home lake, and you can't do that. It's just like for years we never threw a shaky head on Santee. We would fish on Murray or Hartwell or somewhere like that, but we'd get back home and say, well, why don't we do that at home? I mean, you got to do different techniques and always bring something home and learn from it. And we just kind of always use Santee as an experiment. Listen, we've got our
and it's worked out.
Santee. Yeah, it's worked out. It's worked out. So.
Yeah, because I know what you actually won a tournament on the back of a boat at Santee, and
He didn't win it on the back of a boat. He won it over 3 days, I think. He caught him pretty good on the back when we were fishing together, but I think that was his lowest weight when he was with me. He got him really good on day one and day three.
It was a tough day that day. And the weather wasn't real good. The first day the weather wasn't great. The wind blew, and then the third day the fog had set in, and we had a delay on blast off. And then they finally let us go. And to be honest with you, we probably shouldn't have went. We probably should have held back a little bit more. But as fishermen, you're like, yeah, let's go, let's go. But then when you look back on it, you think, well, we might have should have waited a little bit. But and the top 10, I think probably 5 of us went to the lower lake, and we ran nose to tail at like 20 miles an hour all the way to the lower lake. And but once we got there, then it was game on. And,
Yeah.
Right. Me and Patrick had practiced in that area before that tournament, and so I've everywhere I fished in that tournament, I had time there. Whether it be duck hunting, or whether it been alligator hunting, or whether Patrick and I were brim fishing, or whatever. I mean, it's a comfort.
Yeah.
But it was.
No, I can't remember what's the name of that lower lake?
Marion.
Marion.
You got Marion and Moultrie.
Oh, Moultrie. Moultrie's what I'm thinking about. I actually, in practice, I found some pretty good fish down in Moultrie. And my game plan going to day one, I was going to drive down there and try to fish the fish I found the day before, my last day of practice. And in the pre-tournament briefing, and I want to talk to you about this, being, you know the lake so well, and I want to ask you about this. The pre-tournament briefing that night, I was kind of, I eavesdrop a lot, listen to a lot of the guys just in their own groups and cliques, talking amongst themselves. And I overheard, I think Randall Tharp and a couple others were talking about Moultrie is what the water that flows into Moultrie from the river. I think you got almost like a concrete barrier that you have to go through, if I remember right. Remember, this is 2017, so I'm trying to remember this. Mm-hmm. But they were saying that when the wind picks up, it was the top 10 for the most dangerous bodies of water right there in that area where it's coming into Moultrie for how strong the wind's blowing. Coming through there. And I heard that. I ran down there on day one, and I fished it probably till about noontime. I only had like 3 fish. I think I had like 6 pounds on day one, very low weight. At about 12:30 or 1, I told my co-angler. My co-angler was a big old dude. I mean, he was 300 pounds if he wasn't a pound more. I mean, he was a big dude. And I told him, well, it's about 1 o'clock. Let's run back and let's fish close to the ramp. Try to at least I could try to get 2 more fish. Well, I started feeling a wind pickup and started going across. And when I got close to where you go through to the canal or river, whatever it is coming into Moultrie, the concrete disappeared. And I swear to tell you, it had at least 6 footers coming through there. That's the only. Now I've grew up in Florida, fish Okeechobee all my life. I've ran Okeechobee coming back to weigh-ins in 4 or 5 footers, but they're more spread out. It's easier to kind of run the top of them. That is the only time in my fishing career that I have ever got scared in a boat and stuffed. I went over the first 2, stuffed the boat. Coming up over to the third, it completely, dude, filled my boat. I looked over at my co-angler, and his eyes were about that big around. And my automatic pumps, it literally from front deck to back deck, we were sitting in water. And I knew enough to keep the hammer power down, because if I shut down, we were going to be right there. I kept the power down. And we got back, and my automatic pumps were still running at the hotel room that night. So I was going to ask you about that.
Yeah, that's the only lake that Patrick and I have ever stuffed a wave on the Santee besides up north.
Right.
We have no other southern lakes, but Santee, it can get
Yeah.
nasty
Well, that's
in
a
a
good feeling
heartbeat.
for me then, because that means I'm not the only one. That's the only wave I ever
No,
stuffed coming out of
no,
Moultrie back into the river to head back towards the launch. And it literally, I've never been
yeah,
scared in a boat. I've been in some rough stuff, Todd,
yeah.
and that's the only time I have ever scared the bejesus out of me.
If you have fished Santee for numbers of years, you have stuffed a wave,
Right.
guaranteed. Because it can get nasty. Like it can be nice, and it can be absolutely terrible within 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, just that
And
fast.
I can remember during the Bass Live the last time that they were down there that they were talking about it because they were. I want to say that y'all had some weather down there, and
Yep.
there was a couple of guys that went down there, and Zona was like, "Them guys are going to need to get out of there. It's going to
Yeah.
get nasty coming out. They need to
Yep.
go on and get out." And I can't remember who was all down there, but there was one guy that I mean he stayed there pretty much 3/4 of the day.
I think one of the
And
guys that
his
was,
own,
I think one of the guys that was leading was down there, and
yeah,
had the cameras kept on him to see if he was going to make it out, and be able to
Yeah.
get back. Yeah.
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 So you say that you like to, besides fishing, you like to do some hunting, and which Hamner says that he likes to do some bird hunting over deer hunting. Uh, do you like bird hunting over deer hunting, or would you rather deer hunt?
If I had ducks, I would rather duck hunt over deer hunt.
Yeah.
Um,
Now, do
I
you
just
have
I
any
love.
bands?
I do. I probably got at least a dozen and a half.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that is awesome.
Yeah.
yeah. I hunted in Arkansas through the '90s, in the early 2000s,
Yeah,
and I would go out there and hunt 5 or 6 weeks a year. And but yeah, I love to waterfowl hunt.
Yeah.
yeah,
And
and
matter of
that's
fact, I just built an impoundment here at the farm this past year, and it isn't completely ready this year, but it will be ready next year.
yeah.
So
So have you quailed hunt before?
I have quail hunt before. My dad was a big quail hunter, and but in our area, the wild population kind of dwindled down to not a whole lot, and it's
Right.
just now coming back. And I've got a couple cubbies of wild quail here at the farm, so
Nice.
we may try and get them nourished up and maybe do a little bit in the next year or two, just not to try and hurt them, but to get them back.
Right.
But yeah,
Yeah. My dad's dad, he was a senior vice president for Genesco Shoe Company, which was one of the biggest women's shoe company in the world.
yeah,
And he had a guy that I think if I remember correctly, worked with him some way, or it might have been a neighbor. I don't know, but he was talking about how he had this best bird dog that he could ever. It's the best bird dog in the world. No other bird dog like him. And so they were doing some quail hunting, and so the dog went up, spotted, pointed at him, and he gave him the signal to go spook him up. He spooked him up. Then first shots went off. That dog started howling, tucked his tail, went up underneath the truck, and sat there till they got done hunting. And my granddaddy or grandpa was like, "That dog's no good." He says, "Oh, that dog's good for us, just sitting on the front porch waiting on you to come home."
that's right. My dad was an avid quail hunter, and we probably had a dozen dogs. And
Yeah.
there had been times that when he would go, him and the dog, only he would come back if it was a
Oh,
new dog. Um, so I mean, he was that serious about it, but he didn't need a dog to sit on the porch,
Yeah.
and he wasn't gonna pass him off to nobody else either. So
We've had you on for almost an hour, so
yeah,
we do have one question. We
yeah,
cannot leave without asking you this one question, and I know that you watch the podcast and stuff, so you probably know the question that's coming up. But Norman, take it away, brother.
Yeah, man, Todd, it's been a real pleasure being able to just talk some fishing with you, man. It's always a blast being able to chit chat with you and bring up reminisce about some good memories. But if you were to have one person on your boat, Todd, to fish with for the day, and this person could be passed away or still with us, who would that person be that we'd love to fish with for the day, and why would you want to fish with him?
It would be my dad, and I'd probably have to have two people. It'd probably be my dad and my father-in-law,
Awesome.
Yeah.
because they meant so much to me, and just with outdoors. And my father-in-law really opened my eyes to saltwater fishing, and spent a lot of time with me. And my dad was such an avid hunter and fisherman, just a wildlife enthusiast. I mean, whether it be turkey hunting, deer hunting, duck hunting, redbreast fishing, netting, it didn't matter.
Yeah.
And like I say, I felt I had the same relationship with both of them that I have with Patrick.
Right.
I just hate that neither one of them are here today to be able to see kind
Yeah.
of where their grandson has taken it to.
Yeah.
Right.
So
That's
That is
awesome.
awesome.
That's awesome, man.
Well, Todd, thank you so much,
Yeah.
and tell Patrick that we said hello, and hope that during this Christmas time that you get to hold that grandbaby, and
Oh, yeah.
don't give that don't give that grandbaby up. But we can't thank you enough for coming on. We've been wanting to get you on here for a while, and we're excited about
Yeah.
next season, and I hope that we're able to run into you here at the Classic.
Absolutely. I'm gonna be on the road. I'm gonna be on the road running back and forth from the lake. I usually don't make it to the show or anything, but Norman
Yeah.
knows how to get up with me, and like I say, I'll catch up with y'all. And Norman, Colin, I really appreciate y'all having
Yeah.
me on.
Yes, sir.
Enjoyed it.
Todd, it's been a real pleasure. Thanks, sir, and look forward to seeing you this coming March.
Yeah. So,
Great.
guys,
Hey,
thank you again
y'all.
for watching. We will see you here on the water. See you guys.
Yeah, that's it. Y'all do the
Todd,
same.
thanks,
All
Todd.
right. Yep. Thank y'all.
Yep.